The silence of a Capricorn speaks volumes in a world that never stops talking. Those born under the sign of the mountain goat move through life with a quiet intensity that leaves others wondering what's happening behind those calculating eyes. While some zodiac signs broadcast their every thought, Capricorns operate on a different frequency altogether, one where words are precious currency, spent wisely and deliberately. Welcome back to Secret of the Zodiac, where today we're decoding one of the most misunderstood traits of Capricorn natives, their characteristic reservation and selective communication style. That Capricorn in your life, the one who listens intently but shares sparingly, isn't being cold or distant. They're engaging in one of their most powerful practices, the art of meaningful silence. The cosmic fingerprint of Saturn, Capricorn's ruling planet, imprints a natural gravitas upon these earth signs from birth. This ancient teacher planet doesn't waste energy on frivolities, and neither do its celestial children. When you observe a Capricorn in a social setting, you might notice how they absorb everything, the dynamics, the undercurrents, the unspoken tensions, while contributing only when they have something substantive to add. This isn't accidental, it's strategic. Think about the mountain goat symbolism for a moment, that determined creature scaling impossible heights, carefully selecting each foothold before committing its weight. Capricorns approach communication with this same methodical precision. Every word is a step that must support their journey upward. A misstep could mean a tumble from great heights, so they've learned to tread carefully where others might leap without looking. The Capricorn's economy of expression isn't about shyness or social anxiety, though many mistake it for such. Rather, it's a sophisticated form of self-preservation and advancement. In a culture that rewards the loudest voice, Capricorns have discovered the power paradox. Sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the most influence precisely because they make others lean in to listen. There's something magnetic about the Capricorn selective speech. When someone who rarely speaks finally offers their perspective, people naturally assign it greater value. Capricorns intuitively understand this principle and harness it to their advantage. They're playing chess while others play checkers, thinking several moves ahead about how their words might be received, interpreted, and remembered. Behind their composed exterior lies a rich inner landscape where Capricorns are constantly processing, evaluating, and strategizing. Their minds rarely rest, always calculating probabilities, weighing options, and formulating plans that often span years, not just moments. This internal complexity requires space and silence to function optimally. Too much external chatter disrupts their meticulously ordered thought patterns. If you're new to our cosmic community, this exploration of Capricorn's communication style is just the beginning of the astrological insights we offer here. Hit that subscribe button right now to ensure you don't miss our deep dives into each zodiac sign's hidden traits and patterns. And if you're already part of our stargazing family, your like on this video helps our content reach more curious minds across the universe of social media. The relationship between Capricorns and their carefully chosen words runs deeper than mere personality preference. It connects to their fundamental values of efficiency, purpose, and legacy. Every Capricorn silently asks, will these words serve my long-term goals? Will they build or diminish my reputation? Are they necessary? This internal filtering system operates constantly, which brings us to our first set of reasons why these earth signs prefer to keep conversations brief yet meaningful. Reason number 1, actions speak louder than words in the Capricorn philosophy of life. While the world grows increasingly noisy with proclamations, promises, and performative declarations, the Capricorn native stands apart in their commitment to demonstrable results over verbal fanfare. This isn't merely a communication preference. It's a core value that shapes their entire approach to existence. Capricorns harbor a deep-seated skepticism toward those who constantly advertise their intentions without substantiating them through tangible outcomes. They've witnessed too many grandiose announcements evaporate into nothing to place much stock in words alone. The Capricorns' belief in action over rhetoric manifests in their professional environments, where they become known not for what they claim they'll accomplish, but for what they consistently deliver. In meetings, while others might eloquently describe elaborate plans, the Capricorn is mentally cataloging what needs to be done and privately mapping out the most efficient path to completion. Their colleagues might initially mistake this verbal restraint for lack of initiative or creativity, only to be surprised when the Capricorn quietly produces results that exceed expectations. This principle extends into their personal relationships as well. A Capricorn partner won't inundate you with flowery expressions of devotion, but they'll show up unfailingly when you need support. They'll remember the small details you mentioned once in passing. They'll create stability and security through consistent, reliable presence. Their love language is almost always acts of service, the practical demonstrations of care that improve your daily life in concrete ways. For Capricorns, talking about doing something actually diminishes the likelihood of accomplishing it. They've noticed that verbalizing intentions often provides a premature sense of accomplishment that saps motivation for the actual work required. They prefer to channel that energy directly into the task at hand, revealing their achievements only after they've been secured. This pattern creates the characteristic Capricorn tendency to surprise others with accomplishments they never mentioned pursuing. Reason number 2, strategic silence gives them unparalleled observational power. Capricorns have discovered what anthropologists and behavioral psychologists have long documented: those who speak less learn more. By maintaining a reserved presence in social and professional situations, Capricorns create space to absorb crucial information that more talkative individuals might miss. This calculated approach to interaction serves as both a defensive and offensive strategy in navigating complex human dynamics. In professional contexts, this observational stance allows Capricorns to map the intricate web of office politics without becoming entangled in it. They note who holds actual influence versus titular power, who follows through on commitments where loyalties truly lie, and most importantly, what motivates the key players around them. This information becomes invaluable when they eventually need to advance initiatives or secure resources for their projects. The Capricorn's strategic silence extends to negotiations, where they've mastered the power of the pause, while others rush to fill uncomfortable silences with concessions or compromises. Capricorns remain comfortable in these gaps, allowing the other party to reveal more than intended or to improve their initial offer. This technique alone has secured countless Capricorns better compensation packages, business deals, and contractual terms than their more verbose counterparts. In social settings, this same observational prowess allows them to understand the authentic nature of potential friends, partners, and associates before investing emotional energy in these relationships. They recognize inconsistencies between what people claim and how they behave, identifying character patterns that might only become apparent to others after painful experiences. This explains why Capricorns often seem to have an uncanny ability to predict how relationships will unfold. Their silence creates a fascinating psychological effect on those around them as well. When someone speaks rarely, others tend to project depth and wisdom onto them, creating an aura of authority that Capricorns neither confirm nor deny. This projected authority becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as people increasingly seek their input on important matters, further enhancing their influence without requiring self-promotion. Reason number 3, Saturn's cautionary influence makes Capricorns instinctively protective of their personal information and inner thoughts. As children of Saturn, the planet of restrictions, boundaries, and hard-earned wisdom, Capricorns develop an early awareness that words, once released, cannot be reclaimed. This planetary influence instills a natural wariness about vulnerability that shapes their communication throughout life. Saturn's lessons often come through difficult experiences, and many Capricorns can point to specific instances where their openness was weaponized against them. Perhaps they shared uncertainties with a colleague who later used this information to undermine them during a promotion consideration. Maybe they revealed sensitive family matters to a friend who subsequently shared these details in wider social circles. These painful learning experiences crystallize into a protective communication strategy that prevents future harm. This Saturnian caution manifests in the Capricorn tendency to compartmentalize relationships, carefully controlling what information is shared with whom. They intuitively understand that context collapse, the merging of distinct social spheres that occurs in today's interconnected world, poses particular risks to reputation management. Long before social media made this concern common, Capricorns were already practicing stringent information boundaries between different areas of their lives. The influence of Saturn also explains why Capricorns are masterful at navigating hierarchical structures without revealing their ultimate ambitions. They understand that premature disclosure of goals can trigger competitive responses or preventative measures from those who might feel threatened by their advancement. This strategic withholding isn't deceptive. It's self-protective in environments where resources and opportunities are limited. Yet Saturn's gifts include not just caution, but also wisdom, and mature Capricorns eventually develop discernment about when selective vulnerability serves their higher purposes. They learn that calculated openness in specific circumstances can forge powerful alliances and deepen key relationships. When a Capricorn does choose to share something personal, the recipient intuitively recognizes the significance of this rare trust, a Saturnian gift offered only after careful consideration. This planetary influence extends to how Capricorns process emotions before expressing them. While fire signs might immediately verbalize feelings and water signs might visibly emote, Earthbound Capricorns filter emotional responses through Saturn's disciplined lens, asking, is expressing this emotion useful? What purpose will it serve? Could this reaction be something I'll regret later? This internal dialogue often results in measured responses where others might speak impulsively. The Saturnian gift of foresight enables Capricorns to evaluate the long-term implications of their words before uttering them. They naturally consider how today's statements might be interpreted in different contexts years from now, a particularly valuable skill in our era of digital permanence, where past expressions can resurface in entirely new circumstances. This temporal awareness makes them especially judicious in written communication, recognizing its enduring nature. For those who earn a Capricorn's trust, these three foundational reasons for their verbal economy become not limitations, but strengths to be appreciated. Their preference for action over words means their commitments carry exceptional weight. Their observational powers make them insightful advisors in complex situations, and their Saturnian discretion ensures that confidences shared with them remain truly confidential, the increasingly rare quality in our oversharing age. Reason number 4, mental rehearsal precedes verbal expression for the methodical Capricorn mind. Behind their composed exterior lies an intricate process of thought refinement that few other signs practice with such discipline. While they appear silent, Capricorns are actively engaged in a sophisticated internal dialogue, crafting, editing, and perfecting their potential contributions before sharing them with the world. This deliberate mental rehearsal serves multiple purposes beyond mere preparation. For Capricorns, it represents a form of respect, both for themselves and their audience. They understand that unclear communication wastes everyone's time and can lead to misunderstandings with far-reaching consequences. Their commitment to precision reflects their broader value system, where efficiency and effectiveness reign supreme. The Capricorn rehearsal process involves anticipating potential responses, identifying weaknesses in their argument, and preparing for objections before they arise. This thorough mental mapping explains why Capricorns often appear unflappable in debates or discussions. They've already navigated multiple conversational pathways in their minds before speaking their first word. What looks like quick thinking to others is actually the result of extensive preparation. This internal editing system becomes particularly evident in professional settings where stakes are high. Before important presentations or meetings, a Capricorn might appear distant or preoccupied, when in reality they're running simulations of various scenarios, refining their language for maximum impact with minimal opportunity for misinterpretation. They instinctively understand that in many contexts, They'll be judged not only by the substance of their ideas, but by their ability to articulate them effectively. The mental rehearsal habit developed early for most Capricorns, often as a childhood adaptation. Many report having been thoughtful, serious children who observed how hasty words could lead to embarrassment or correction. This early pattern of thinking before speaking becomes reinforced throughout life as they notice how this approach consistently yields better outcomes than spontaneous expression. What began as self-protection evolves into a sophisticated communication strategy. For those close to Capricorns, recognizing this internal process explains the characteristic pause that often precedes their responses. This isn't hesitation or uncertainty. It's their editing system at work, ensuring that what emerges serves their intended purpose. Learning to appreciate this pause rather than rushing to fill it with more words is key to communicating effectively with a Capricorn in your life. Reason number 5. Energy conservation is a fundamental Capricorn principle that extends naturally to their communication patterns. These pragmatic earth signs intuitively understand what science has recently confirmed, that willpower, mental focus, and social energy are finite resources that require careful management. While other signs might expend these resources freely across numerous interactions, Capricorns instinctively prioritize where their energy will yield the greatest return. This conservation mindset manifests in their selective approach to conversation topics. Small talk, gossip, and speculative discussions rarely merit the Capricorn's full engagement, as these exchanges consume valuable mental resources without producing tangible benefits. They've recognized through experience that meaningful conversations about goals, strategies, or substantive subjects energize them, while superficial interactions leave them depleted. The Capricorn's energy economy operates on a longer timeline than most. Where others might seek immediate social gratification through constant communication, Capricorns invest their verbal resources in exchanges that build toward future objectives. This long-term perspective explains why they often seem disinterested in trending topics, but become suddenly animated when conversation shifts to subjects with lasting significance. Their selective communication reflects an intuitive understanding of opportunity cost. Every conversation represents not just the energy expended in that moment, but also the alternative uses of that same energy that become unavailable. This calculation happens subconsciously for most Capricorns, who find themselves naturally withdrawing from interactions that don't align with their core priorities. Physical energy factors into this equation as well. Many Capricorns report experiencing genuine fatigue from extended periods of verbal engagement, particularly in group settings or around unfamiliar people. This isn't merely introversion, though many Capricorns do identify as introverts. It's a bodily recognition of the energy transfer that occurs during communication. They've learned to honor these physical signals rather than pushing through them at the expense of their well-being. For the ambitious Capricorn, energy conservation becomes particularly critical during periods of intensive work or significant challenges. They intuitively understand that verbal output requires cognitive resources that might be better directed toward problem-solving, strategic planning, or executing critical tasks. This explains why Capricorns often become notably quieter when focused on important projects or navigating major life transitions. Those who understand this aspect of Capricorn nature recognize that their silence isn't rejection or disinterest. It's a necessary recalibration of energy allocation. The Capricorn who seems withdrawn today may be conserving resources for tomorrow's mountain climb, whether literal or metaphorical. This preservation instinct serves their long-term success in ways that more communicative signs might envy. Reason number 6. Trust assessment occurs during periods of Capricorn silence, creating an unintentional but effective testing ground for potential confidants. While they appear to be simply listening, Capricorns are conducting sophisticated evaluations of character, consistency, and reliability before granting access to their inner world. This cautious approach to vulnerability stems from their fundamental need for emotional security. The Capricorn trust assessment involves multiple dimensions that few people recognize during casual interactions. They observe how you treat others when you believe no one important is watching. They note whether your actions align with your stated values across different contexts. They track if you maintain confidences shared by others or distribute them as conversational currency. They assess whether your life demonstrates the stability and consistency that they prize so highly. This evaluation happens largely without conscious intention. It's an ingrained pattern of observation that Capricorns developed early in life. Many report having had experiences in childhood or adolescence where trust was broken in ways that left lasting impressions. These formative events created a template for careful discernment that serves them throughout adulthood, particularly in professional environments where alliances must be chosen wisely. The fascinating paradox of this trust assessment is that Capricorns rarely reveal they're conducting it. Unlike water signs who might actively probe with personal questions, or fire signs who challenge directly to gauge reactions, earthbound Capricorns simply observe over time, allowing patterns to emerge naturally. This patience in relationship building explains why many people report feeling suddenly accepted by a Capricorn after months or even years of knowing them. For those being evaluated, the process can feel mysterious and occasionally frustrating. The Capricorn's neutral expression reveals little about their internal judgments, creating uncertainty about where one stands. This ambiguity isn't intentionally created. It's simply the external manifestation of their thorough vetting process. What appears as emotional withholding to others is actually the Capricorn's careful stewardship of their vulnerability. The duration of this assessment varies significantly based on context. Professional relationships might remain at a surface level indefinitely if deeper trust isn't required for effective collaboration. Personal relationships typically require shorter evaluation periods, though still longer than many other signs might need. Romantic partnerships often undergo the most rigorous and extended assessment, as these connections pose the greatest potential for both fulfillment and harm. When a Capricorn does determine someone has passed their trust threshold, the shift in communication can be dramatic but subtle. They begin sharing more personal thoughts, revealing vulnerabilities, and engaging in deeper philosophical discussions. This transition rarely announces itself explicitly. It emerges gradually as the Capricorn's protective barriers lower in response to demonstrated trustworthiness. The reward for passing a Capricorn's trust assessment is significant. Once you've been granted access to their inner world, you gain a loyal ally whose commitment remains steadfast through challenges that would fracture less dedicated connections. Their selective approach to intimacy creates depth in relationships that more immediately open signs sometimes struggle to achieve. The Capricorn who trusts you completely becomes an unshakable presence in your life, a rare and valuable connection worth the patience required to develop it. Understanding these three additional reasons, mental rehearsal, energy conservation, and trust assessment, provides crucial insight into the Capricorn's seemingly reserved nature. Their silence isn't absence, but presence in a different form, a form that prioritizes substance over performance, depth over breadth, and lasting connection over immediate gratification. Reason number 7, long-term contemplation occupies the Capricorn mind space that others might fill with casual conversation. Within the seemingly quiet exterior of the Capricorn exists a mental landscape constantly engaged in mapping futures, calculating probabilities, and constructing pathways toward distant goals. This forward-focused cognitive pattern creates a natural economy of words as their attention remains fixed on horizons that others may not yet perceive. The Capricorn's characteristic long-range planning begins remarkably early in life. While their peers might focus exclusively on immediate pleasures or short-term achievements, young Capricorns often display an unusual awareness of how present actions connect to future outcomes. This temporal perspective expands throughout their development, eventually stretching across decades rather than just months or years. Their conversations reflect this extended timeline. They simply find less value in discussing temporary circumstances when their minds are occupied with more enduring concerns. This forward projection manifests in peculiar conversational patterns that those close to Capricorns learn to recognize. They might suddenly break a comfortable silence to ask an unexpected question about retirement planning, career pivots, or investment strategies, revealing a mental thread they've been quietly following, while others assumed they were simply enjoying the moment. These glimpses into their internal landscape often surprise those who mistake their quietness for mental vacancy rather than active contemplation. Professional environments highlight this future-oriented thinking most clearly. While colleagues become absorbed in quarterly targets or annual reviews, the Capricorn is simultaneously considering how current projects build toward 5-year objectives or position the organization for industry shifts that may not materialize for a decade. This expanded perspective makes some conversations seem trivial by comparison. Discussing minor office politics holds little appeal when you're mentally sketching blueprints for entire career architectures. The Capricorn's long-term contemplation creates a fascinating relationship with time itself. Where others experience time as a series of discrete moments, Capricorns perceive it as an interconnected continuum where past, present, and potential futures exist simultaneously in their decision-making. This temporal fluidity explains why they sometimes appear distracted when actually they are mentally traveling between time frames, evaluating how historical patterns might inform future possibilities. Their silence during social gatherings often masks this internal time travel. While appearing to simply observe the room, they might be mentally projecting relationships forward, considering which connections might yield meaningful collaborations years hence, which friendships have sustainability beyond current circumstances, or how social capital being built now might serve greater purposes in future scenarios. This pragmatic evaluation occurs naturally, without conscious intention to categorize relationships based on utility. For those seeking deeper connection with Capricorns, understanding this aspect of their mental landscape creates valuable insight. Their quietness doesn't indicate disengagement, but rather a different engagement plane, one that extends beyond immediate social dynamics into longitudinal possibilities. Conversations that acknowledge and honor this expanded timeline often draw them out of silence, particularly when you demonstrate your own capacity for substantive long-term thinking. Reason number 8. Solitary comfort defines the Capricorn's relationship with silence, mirroring their symbolic mountain goat's independent nature. While many experience extended quietness as awkward or isolating, Capricorns find genuine restoration in these still spaces. Their comfort with silence stems from an intrinsic self-sufficiency that requires no external validation through constant verbal exchange. This solitary comfort typically develops early, as many Capricorn children display remarkable capacity for independent play and self-directed activities. Where others might seek continuous social engagement, young Capricorns often create structured solitude, building elaborate worlds, pursuing focused interests, or developing skills through persistent practice. This early pattern establishes silence not as an absence to be filled, but as a productive space to be valued. The Capricorn's mountain goat symbolism perfectly captures this independent spirit. Like their celestial emblems scaling remote peaks where few others venture, Capricorns navigate internal landscapes that others might find too austere or demanding. There's a particular strength in this solitary journey, one that develops without constant external affirmation or guidance. Their silence reflects this self-directed nature, rather than any deficiency in social capacity. This comfort with solitude creates a distinctive approach to relationship dynamics. While many form connections through continuous verbal exchange, Capricorns often build their deepest relationships through shared silence, comfortable intervals where nothing needs saying. They value companions who understand that conversation needn't be constant to be meaningful. This preference explains why many Capricorns partner with individuals who similarly appreciate contemplative space rather than those requiring persistent verbal reassurance. Professional environments frequently mistake this independent nature for detachment or disinterest, particularly in cultures that equate verbal participation with engagement. The Capricorn's comfort, operating without constant feedback or direction, sometimes creates friction in collaborative settings where continuous communication is expected, yet their capacity for focused, self-directed work often produces results that eventually justify their unorthodox approach. The solitude that Capricorns cultivate serves another critical purpose. It provides essential recovery periods between social engagements. Many report experiencing what psychologists now term social battery depletion after extended interaction. Their intuitive response is to create restoration intervals through strategic withdrawal and minimal communication. This pattern isn't rejection, but rather a necessary recalibration that allows them to return to relationships with renewed presence. Understanding this aspect of Capricorn nature helps friends and partners interpret their periodic retreats more accurately. The Capricorn who becomes increasingly quiet or seeks physical solitude isn't necessarily processing negative emotions or withdrawing from the relationship. They're simply honoring their need for unstructured mental space. Respecting these intervals often strengthens connections by demonstrating recognition of their fundamental orientation toward selective rather than constant engagement. Reason number 9. Strategic mystique develops naturally from the Capricorn's selective communication, creating an unintended but advantageous aura that serves them in both personal and professional spheres. While rarely a conscious tactic, their verbal economy generates curiosity and respect from others who find themselves intrigued by what remains unsaid. This mystique operates on fascinating psychological principles that influence how others perceive and respond to Capricorns. Research in social dynamics consistently demonstrates that partial information often creates stronger engagement than complete disclosure, a phenomenon Capricorns benefit from without deliberately employing it. Their natural reticence activates others' imagination, frequently resulting in projections that attribute greater depth, wisdom, or capability than excessive self-disclosure might generate. Professional environments particularly reward this quality, as organizational cultures tend to associate measured communication with competence and authority. The Capricorn who speaks selectively in meetings often finds their contributions given disproportionate weight, precisely because they've created a pattern of speaking only when they have something substantive to offer. This perceived significance transforms occasional comments into memorable moments that colleagues reference long afterward. The mystique factor operates differently in leadership contexts. Capricorns in management positions often discover that strategic withholding creates space for team members to develop their own solutions, rather than becoming dependent on constant direction. Their comfort with silence during discussions allows others' ideas to emerge fully before offering judgment, creating environments where innovation flourishes despite, or perhaps because of, their measured verbal presence. In personal relationships, this same quality often intensifies attraction and interest during early dating phases. The Capricorn's natural inclination toward gradual self-disclosure creates an engaging discovery process that contrasts sharply with the immediate oversharing common in contemporary dating culture. This measured revelation builds anticipation and sustainability that relationships lacking this element of mystery often fail to develop. The fascinating paradox of this mystique is that Capricorns themselves rarely recognize its presence or power. When others comment on their enigmatic quality, many express genuine surprise. They don't perceive themselves as particularly mysterious, but simply as private individuals who share according to context and relationship depth. This unconscious nature of their appeal adds authenticity that deliberate mystique-building tactics would undermine. For those seeking to understand the Capricorn in their lives, recognizing the unintentional nature of this mystique provides important perspective. Their selective communication isn't a manipulative strategy, but rather an authentic expression of their intrinsic nature. The fascination they generate comes not from calculated withholding, but from genuine discernment about what merits verbalization and what remains better unspoken. This natural mystique connects directly to Saturn's influence on Capricorn nature. As the planet of boundaries and structures, Saturn bestows an intuitive understanding of limits, including the powerful boundaries between what is revealed and what remains private. This planetary guidance helps Capricorns maintain the mysterious edge that others find compelling without conscious effort to create this effect. The evolution of this quality throughout the Capricorn's life follows an interesting trajectory. Many report that during adolescence and early adulthood, they attempted to override this natural reticence, believing that greater verbal participation was necessary for social acceptance. With maturity comes recognition that their natural communication style actually creates distinction in environments where others compete for attention through volume rather than substance. This self-acceptance typically strengthens their mystique as it becomes more authentically expressed. For those forming relationships with Capricorns, appreciating this aspect of their nature transforms potential frustration into fascination. Rather than experiencing their selective communication as withholding, it becomes possible to value the carefully curated nature of what they do share. Each disclosure represents something deemed worthy of verbalization, a selection from countless thoughts that pass their rigorous internal filtering system. This perspective renders Capricorn communication not less but more meaningful, precisely because of its selectivity. Understanding these three dimensions, long-term contemplation, solitary comfort, and strategic mystique, reveals how the Capricorn's communication style serves purposes far beyond simple information exchange. Their silence creates space for future mapping, honors their independent nature, and generates an intriguing presence that distinctive personalities often command. Reason number 10. Pragmatic filtering eliminates conversations lacking substance from the Capricorn's daily experience. This practical discernment system operates continuously as they evaluate potential verbal exchanges against a simple but powerful criterion. Does this conversation serve a meaningful purpose? This filtering mechanism isn't about intellectual snobbery, but rather reflects their fundamental orientation toward purposeful living in all dimensions. The Capricorn's pragmatic approach to communication often confuses those who engage in conversation, primarily for social bonding rather than information exchange or problem solving. While many zodiac signs view casual dialogue as valuable for its own sake, building connections through shared verbal rhythms, Capricorns instinctively categorize conversations based on their tangible outcomes. This utilitarian perspective creates natural boundaries around what merits their verbal participation. Their filtering system becomes particularly evident in group settings where conversations frequently drift between substantive topics and social maintenance talk. Observe a Capricorn in these environments and you'll notice their engagement pattern fluctuates dramatically, becoming animated and attentive when discussion centers on matters of consequence, then quietly withdrawing when it shifts toward gossip, speculation, or circular debates. This selective participation isn't rudeness, but rather their pragmatic nature asserting itself. Professional environments often reward this quality, particularly in fields where precision and outcome orientation are valued. The Capricorn, who speaks only when necessary and always with purpose, tends to advance more rapidly than equally capable peers who dilute their communication impact through excessive verbalization. Senior leadership frequently recognizes the Capricorn's signal-to-noise ratio as indicating executive potential, even when they lack the charismatic communication style traditionally associated with advancement. This pragmatic filtering extends to emotional expressions as well, creating one of the most misunderstood aspects of Capricorn communication. Where water signs might process feelings through extensive verbal exploration and fire signs express emotions as they arise, earthbound Capricorns apply practical filters to emotional content. Is expressing this feeling productive? Will it lead to resolution or merely amplify the emotion? This calculation isn't emotional suppression, but rather purposeful management of emotional energy. The fascinating evolution of this filtering system occurs throughout the Capricorn's life journey. Young Capricorns often struggle with social expectations for participation in conversations they find purposeless, creating tension between their natural discernment and desire for acceptance. Maturity brings confidence in their filtering mechanism as they recognize its value in preserving mental clarity and focus. By midlife, most Capricorns have fully embraced this aspect of their nature, unapologetically engaging only in exchanges that merit their attention. For those building relationships with Capricorns, understanding this pragmatic filter transforms potential frustration into strategic communication. Rather than experiencing their selective engagement as judgment, it becomes possible to recognize it as a valuable sorting mechanism that prioritizes meaningful exchange. Conversations framed in terms of clear purpose, practical application, or substantive exploration naturally bypass their filtering system, creating genuine connections through shared value for consequential dialogue. Reason number 11. Earth-grounded processing characterizes the Capricorn's distinctive cognitive style, creating natural pauses in communication that others might fill with immediate verbal response. As the consummate Earth sign, Capricorns process information through a thorough grounding procedure, connecting new data to established knowledge, testing ideas against practical reality, and evaluating concepts through tangible implications before rendering them into speech. This earth element processing explains why Capricorns often appear to be mentally chewing on information long after others have swallowed and digested it. Where air signs might immediately verbalize connections between ideas and fire signs respond with quick intuitive leaps, Earth-dominant Capricorns methodically incorporate new information into their existing knowledge structure, a process requiring time and creating natural communication gaps that less patient signs might rush to fill. The distinctive quality of this earth-grounded thinking becomes apparent in how Capricorns respond to proposals or suggestions. Rather than offering immediate feedback, they typically enter a visible processing state. Their expression grows contemplative as they mentally project the idea into various practical scenarios, testing its structural integrity against real-world conditions. This thoroughness sometimes frustrates more impulsive signs who mistake deliberation for indecision, when actually it represents a more comprehensive evaluation system. Professional environments often reveal the strength of this processing style during strategic planning or problem-solving sessions, while others might generate numerous ideas without evaluating their feasibility. The Capricorn mentally tests each concept against resource constraints, implementation challenges, and long-term sustainability before speaking. This practical vetting produces fewer but more viable contributions, quality over quantity in its purest form. The earth element's influence extends to how Capricorns process emotional information as well, creating their characteristic measured response to situations that might provoke immediate reaction from other signs. When facing conflict or receiving criticism, they instinctively ground the emotional charge by examining factual elements, identifying concrete issues beneath emotional packaging, and seeking stable solutions rather than temporary emotional release. This grounding process requires internal space that excessive verbalization would disrupt. This earth-dominant processing creates a distinctive rhythm in Capricorn communication patterns. Rather than the continuous flow that characterizes many interactions, conversations with Capricorns often follow a cycle of reception, processing, and considered response. These natural intervals aren't awkward silences, but necessary integration periods that honor their fundamental cognitive orientation. Understanding this rhythm allows for more productive exchanges by providing the processing space their earth nature requires. For those building relationships with Capricorns, recognizing this grounded processing style transforms communication dynamics. Rather than experiencing their response delays as disinterest or dismissal, it becomes possible to appreciate the thorough evaluation underway. Providing time for this essential processing demonstrates respect for their cognitive approach and typically yields more substantive engagement than pressuring for immediate response would generate. Reason number 12. Quality-centered communication philosophy forms the foundational principle underlying all Capricorn verbal exchange. This core value places premium importance on the weight and impact of their words, rather than their volume or frequency. For Capricorns, communication represents not casual currency to be spent freely, but rather valuable capital to be invested judiciously for maximum return. This quality-centered approach manifests in the characteristic precision of Capricorn speech. They instinctively eliminate unnecessary qualifiers, redundant phrasing, and verbal padding that dilutes meaning. This linguistic efficiency isn't about brevity for its own sake, but rather reflects their fundamental belief that words should carry substance proportional to the attention they command. The result is communication with remarkable signal clarity. When a Capricorn speaks, people naturally listen. The developmental path toward this communication philosophy typically begins early. Many Capricorns report childhood experiences where they observed how excessive talking diminished credibility, while careful, substantive contributions gained respect. These formative observations created lasting impressions about verbal exchange value. Quality generates influence in ways that quantity cannot achieve. This early learning shapes their lifelong approach to when, how, and why they choose to speak. Professional environments particularly reward this quality-centered philosophy, as organizational hierarchies generally favor those whose words carry weight. The Capricorn who speaks selectively in meetings, offering precisely crafted insights or solutions, tends to develop a reputation for wisdom that more verbose colleagues struggle to establish despite greater verbal output. This pattern reinforces their natural inclination toward meaningful rather than abundant communication. This philosophy extends beyond business contexts into their personal relationships, where depth rather than frequency characterizes their most meaningful exchanges. A Capricorn might speak less often than others, but create moments of profound connection through carefully considered revelations, observations that penetrate surface appearances, or questions that open unexplored dimensions of experience. These quality interactions often become anchoring moments in relationships that others remember long afterward. The fascinating paradox of this approach is that by speaking less, Capricorns often communicate more effectively than those who express themselves constantly. This phenomenon operates on psychological principles of contrast and scarcity. When someone speaks rarely but meaningfully, each contribution stands out against the background of their characteristic restraint. This natural contrast effect amplifies their communication impact without requiring artificial emphasis or emotional intensity. For Capricorns themselves, this quality-centered philosophy creates a distinctive relationship with language itself. They develop natural appreciation for precision, clarity, and impact in communication, not just in their own expression, but in what they value from others. This discernment explains why many Capricorns gravitate toward individuals whose communication demonstrates similar substance, regardless of whether their style matches the Capricorn's measured approach. The evolution of this philosophy throughout the Capricorn's life typically follows an interesting trajectory. Young Capricorns often struggle against social environments that equate verbal volume with engagement, popularity, or intelligence. Maturity brings growing confidence in their quality-centered approach as they witness how substantive communication ultimately generates greater respect than constant verbalization. By midlife, most Capricorns have fully embraced this core aspect of their nature, recognizing it as strength rather than limitation. For those building relationships with Capricorns, understanding this fundamental philosophy transforms how their communication style is experienced. Rather than interpreting their verbal economy as emotional withholding or disinterest, it becomes possible to appreciate the deliberate curation underlying their expression. Each word represents something deemed worthy of vocalization, a selection from countless thoughts that pass their rigorous internal quality standards. This perspective renders Capricorn communication not less but more meaningful, precisely because of its selectivity. This 12th reason completes our exploration of why Capricorns prefer to talk little, bringing us full circle to the essence of their communication nature. From their belief that actions speak louder than words to their fundamental philosophy that quality trumps quantity in all forms of expression. These 12 dimensions reveal the sophisticated system operating beneath their characteristic verbal restraint. What might appear as simple quietness to casual observers actually represents a complex, purposeful approach to human connection that prioritizes substance over performance, depth over breadth, and impact over impression. Understanding these 12 dimensions transforms how we experience the Capricorn's communication style, not as deficiency, but as distinctive strength. Their verbal economy creates space for observation, reflection, and discernment in a world increasingly filled with noise. Their selective expression ensures that when they do speak, their words carry weight proportional to the attention they request, and their quality-centered philosophy reminds us that meaningful communication isn't measured by volume, but by value, a principle that serves well in both professional advancement and personal connection. Through our exploration of the Capricornian communication style, we've uncovered a sophisticated system operating beneath their characteristic verbal restraint. What initially appears as simple quietness to casual observers actually represents a complex, purposeful approach to human connection that merits our appreciation rather than frustration. The Capricorn's selective expression isn't a limitation, but rather a strength that serves them well across all dimensions of life. We began by recognizing how Capricorns fundamentally believe that actions speak louder than words, demonstrating their worth through tangible accomplishments rather than verbal promises. Their strategic silence revealed itself as a powerful observational tool, allowing them to gather crucial information while others exposed their positions prematurely. Saturn's cautionary influence emerged as the planetary guardian that instills natural protection of personal information, creating boundaries that serve both defensive and developmental purposes. Delving deeper, we discovered how mental rehearsal precedes their verbal expressions, ensuring precision and impact when they do choose to speak. Their instinctive energy conservation reflected the pragmatic approach that characterizes all aspects of Capricorn life, resources invested wisely rather than spent freely. The trust assessment process operating during periods of apparent disengagement explained why meaningful connection with Capricorns develops gradually but endures remarkably. Our journey continued by examining how long-term contemplation occupies the mental space others might fill with casual conversation, revealing the future-oriented thinking that distinguishes Capricorn cognition. Their solitary comfort with silence reflected the mountain goat's independent nature, secure in themselves without constant external validation. The strategic mystique that develops naturally from their selective communication creates an unintended but advantageous aura that serves them throughout life. In our final exploration, we uncovered how pragmatic filtering eliminates conversations lacking substance, preserving mental energy for exchanges that merit engagement. Their earth-grounded processing system explained the characteristic pauses that others might misinterpret as hesitation rather than thorough evaluation. Ultimately, their quality-centered communication philosophy illuminated the core principle underlying all aspects of Capricorn expression, that words should carry weight proportional to the attention they command. Understanding these 12 dimensions transforms our experience of the Capricorn communication style from potential frustration to genuine appreciation. Their verbal economy creates valuable space for observation and reflection in a world increasingly saturated with noise. Their selective expression ensures that when they do speak, their words deserve the attention they receive, and their commitment to substance over performance reminds us all that meaningful connection transcends mere verbalization. If you found insight in this exploration of Capricorn communication patterns, we invite you to become part of our cosmic community at Secret of the Zodiac. Subscribe now to receive notifications whenever we publish new astrological insights, from deep sign analysis to compatibility guidance and planetary transits. Our channel offers fresh perspectives on ancient wisdom, helping you navigate relationships and life decisions with greater understanding of the cosmic influences at play. Take a moment to browse our extensive Zodiac library, where you'll find detailed explorations of every sign, planet, and house. Whether you're seeking to understand yourself more deeply or gain insight into the important people in your life, our comprehensive content provides the astrological guidance you need. Each video offers practical wisdom you can apply immediately to enhance your relationships and personal growth. We particularly value hearing your experiences in the comments section. If you're a Capricorn, did these reasons resonate with your lived experience? Which dimension most accurately reflects your communication style? If you have Capricorns in your life, has this exploration helped you understand their verbal patterns more clearly? Your insights not only enrich our community, but also help others navigating similar cosmic terrain. Your support through likes and shares allows our content to reach more seekers on their astrological journey. Each engagement helps our videos find their way to those who need this wisdom most. We commit to bringing you authentic astrological guidance rather than superficial horoscopes, and your engagement directly supports this mission. For those who find particular value in our content, we invite you to consider supporting the channel through Super Thanks. This monetary contribution helps offset the considerable costs of producing daily astrological content and allows us to invest in enhancing production quality and expanding our cosmic offerings. Your financial support transforms from viewer to patron of astrological wisdom, helping sustain this work for our entire community. Until our next cosmic exploration, remember that understanding the stars helps us better understand ourselves and each other. The heavens speak through us in different voices, some loud and expressive, others measured and profound. The Capricorn's quietness isn't absence, but presence in its most concentrated form, worthy of our patience and attention in a world that rarely slows down enough to truly listen.